Like, whatever.
You said, get your own family. Just start over.
I was like, dude, what are you talking about? I don't know if it is the way we solve problems, right? Just kind of like sweep it to the side and keep it moving.
Yeah. Everything is replaceable. But that's a part of his trauma. And he can't reconcile with his people. He haven't learned that yet. He hasn't learned that he's not that you got to have them all in your mix, but you do need to reconcile. You do need to.
Yeah,
because you are ignoring yourself. Like you are shaming you too. Like.
So I guess there is this, you can't, you got to admit it to quit it. So you can't heal what you can't acknowledge. And so if it's always the other, and it may just be the other person, but I think we're about to come into that section where, what if it is the other person, right? How do we extend compassion towards them too?
Exactly.
So, wonderful morning to you. How was your night?
It was good. Good. I didn't go dancing, but it was still a good night.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a good night. Yesterday was a very, very good day. It's a wonderful day.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yay. It's a wonderful
day.
life.
Yeah.
I will tell you that, so yesterday I had meetings. Well, the ward club meeting, my brother had the ward club meeting, but it was going on at the same time as my yoga. So I was trying to do both, which is really hard to listen to a meeting and do yoga and be centered,
present and connected.
Yeah, so I had all of this stuff going on, and I had made this, I didn't want to go out of the house. And so at about 8:30, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go sit in the sauna because I need some downtime. I go down there, I get in the sauna, I talk to my cousin while I'm in the sauna.
Okay.
And I get in the bed, girl, and that was all she wrote. I look at the time and I'm like, what does that mean? It's 5:40. 5:40. Does that mean I overslept by a whole hour? So yeah, I was knocked out last night.
Wow.
So that
was probably after you let off all those impurities, your body was doing its healing process.
Good morning, Tweety.
Good morning.
How are you, darling? Yeah, it was, it felt, this morning I was disconcerted, but yeah, it felt good to be up. So, yeah, and so then it's just been me trying to get back into my schedule wherever I could fit into my schedule. So I'm really, yesterday we ended up talking about that incident with Will and Chris, and while that was good, don't get me wrong, I think it was really good because I love processing the information, and I think that is something that is worthy of our consideration. Who it is we choose to be and how we choose to look at things, and then to talk about it in a larger societal type of thing. My cousin, she asked me, she says, oh, I saw that you guys talked about that because I wrote it in the description.
Yes.
She asked me for the Cliff Note version so that she could then tell me about this Swedish book of living and dying. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
So, and so there is this thing of getting your life in order, so to speak, so that somebody doesn't have to take care of your stuff. It's almost like catching up to the point of where you are not leaving a lot of unfinished business behind. At least that's what I took from her summation of it.
Okay.
So when so that was kind of how we ended the call with that, and me knowing that there has been this desire for me to declutter my space anyway, to do this sort of a purge, but to get to that point of where I'm actually doing the work of purging. So it was just, and so it was, we had that conversation, and and I thought, okay, I got a lot of other stuff too that's on my plate to do. And so yeah, that'll be something that continues to play in my mind as I move forward. So
I what I have found in that area of my life, because I'm an administrator to my heart, so I love order. I love organizing businesses and things like that. And what I have found for my own personal self is when I go into a space where that is a thing for me, which is all the time, that I literally put it on my calendar and, just give myself 4 hours or 5 hours or 6 hours in that day to just focus, concentrate on a space, whatever that is. If it's painting a wall, then from the taping it down to the, covering up the furniture, like that's what I do for that day, because otherwise, as an Aries, I am known for procrastination. That's one of our characteristics. We'll put things off, right? And so as an administrator to like 5 executives or 72 people, I have just learned how to put those things that seem to be insignificant, like cleaning out the refrigerator of a staff of 75, making sure that the stuff is all thrown out, putting it on my calendar and having an alarm that says, all right, it's Friday, start throwing people's stuff away. Like, you've already sent the note out, you tell them it's Friday, boom, 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 as opposed to coming in 2 weeks from now and the stuff is everywhere. Science experiments are in the, and then having to also go home and do the same thing and running my household. And so that is one of the things that I have found to be really helpful when I have big projects to do, is to put them on my calendar in little tiny segments, as opposed to I got to have a project, we got to have a day where we just clean. So that's what I was raised that way. Saturday was our, all hands on deck day.
Yeah, that's the same way I was raised too. Well, though we had chores every day.
Right.
Saturday was the deep dive. So yeah. So okay, so that's interesting. Yeah, it would be nice if I could do. No, I can do it. So I'll just put a period on that. Whitney says that she's like that also. So I'll put a period on that, and make sure that I keep that in my, that my Rolodex for yeah, making that happen. Yeah. So good. I like that. So although I think about it in the extent like this is more than 4 hours.
But just plan to do it for the entire year. Make by the end of the year, I will have it 100% done, or 6 months from now, I'll have it 100% done, as opposed to today, it's got to all be done. I think that from my experience, that's what makes life crazy for me. If I have a day that I want to clean, like a junk drawer, I think everybody has a junk drawer. So I have to put cleaning my junk drawer on my calendar. And then that's my thing to do that day that I'm adding to my regular calendar. Like I'm going to clean my junk drawer. That's what I do that day. And because when I clean my junk drawer, that means I got to reorganize it. I got to put things where they're supposed to be that ended up in the junk drawer, like tools and screws. And so, but I make that the thing as opposed to, I'm sick of this drawer, take it out. Your day is blown because this was not on your thing to do day. And you have cleaned out a junk drawer, but what other things have you forgone for that day that you were supposed to do? You know.
Good morning, Winnie.
Good morning, Winnie.
Okay, so we are we're talking about getting organized here. And okay, that it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. And yeah. Yes. I will look. I'm sure that I'm not alone in thinking,
no way.
Okay, I will.
It's springtime. That's what we do around this time. It's the energy of spring cleaning.
Yes. And I have been talking about it. As a matter of fact, I've been talking about it for a year because I want to move down to the other unit. So I've been talking about it for a long time of getting my stuff done. What is it, Erica? Girl, good morning.
Good morning, Erica.
We haven't seen you at this hour in a minute.
Yes.
Before 8. But yeah, so I've been talking about moving downstairs for a minute, and now I feel a certain urgency because I'm thinking about inviting a friend of mine to move into my upstairs.
Okay.
And so so that becomes when he says she got a lot to organize too. Yeah, so that is like an incentive for me to put it out there to him and see what he says and go on from there. He's got to be about how do I want to say, he's much older. He's an older man. But somebody, it's not that kind of party, Erica. He's a much older man. He's always called me Sister Sandra. And he's got to be, so he's getting up in age. He's getting up in age. And but this is somebody who I befriended probably at least 25 years ago. And although I don't see him like I used to all the time, because when he used to work where I worked, he was he actually he retired as a fireman, and then he took a job as a caretaker of a church, this church compound. And so he's been doing that for I don't know how many years. So he's a beautiful soul. Came from Mississippi, and so I've known him for a while. And so it's been in the back of my mind that I need to check in on him and how he's doing, and that even when I was younger, there was this desire to, I don't know, the guy who I had that used to live with me from Ghana used to live in my attic. And I remember when he came by after some years of not being up there, and he was like, he started telling me the story about some biblical story, and I'm trying to think of who it was that they put the spies up in the upper room, and they were, was it, oh gosh, I can't even think of the story right now. Anyway, they had somebody living in the upper room, and I want to relate the story to, because I think they destroyed the city. I forget what the name of how the story went, but anyway, he used to talk about how he felt like when he came to stay with me, he felt like he was one of those angels that was being harbored in my upper room. And he always talked about, the charge that he felt over my life because of that situation. And so, after that, I heard that story, I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, I'm gonna have this guy move up in my upper room, damn it. I'm not, and so now that now that this is laying on my heart, I'm going to see what happens. I'm gonna talk to him and see if he's interested. And he may not even be interested in moving. This may just be all my psychological stuff. He might be like, oh, Sister Sandra, I can't do that. Because he might, yeah, it might not even happen. But it's getting me
motivation.
Kind of like, it's like, yeah, I feel like this, like you're trying to push a car that hasn't moved in a minute. It feels kind of like that. So anyway, today we get to talk about, did we finish up with Gavin?
Yeah, well, pretty much we were like ending up, we definitely finished, completed telling the story of Gavin, but then we were talking about parents who are taking care of parents.
Parents who are taking care
of children. I'm sorry.
Who are taking care of parents. Okay. Children who are taking care of parents. Oh yeah. And you know what? One of the things, I had a friend of mine whose grandmother came to stay with her parents. And they used to treat this grandmother just like she was a little kid. It was, no, I'm gonna run the bath water. No, you can't cook. No, you go.
But a grandma couldn't cook?
Yeah, they were like saying to her, treating her like, just go over there and sit down.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where I was like, I kept saying, doesn't everybody need to feel useful and needed, like in some kind of way? I think that,
and what grandma would let you get away with that?
Well, I think that she was moving a little slower, surely.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think of whose mother it was. So, that too matters. Like if it's the mother's mother or the father's mother, that kind of stuff matters. It's a whole dynamic.
It's true.
That gets in that. So she was a sweet older lady. She was a really sweet older lady. And the funny thing is, and for those that know her, she used to call me Sandis. She could never say my name the way it was. She called me Sandis. But yeah, it was always one of those things where it just seemed like they tried to overreach where it was that she was. And so, you kind of watched her as she slowly kind of regressed back further and further into the chair. But it is this thing of, I think when you are, when you're taking care of your parents or your grandparents, there's this, I think people do tend to overreach sometimes.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I even had the ability to, over my grandmothers, if I had to take care of them, I couldn't even see them being so allowing. Because they just had this presence about themselves that I'm the grandmother, and
but, are they an older grandmother yet? You know what I mean?
My grandmother passed away at 65. So she was not an older grandmother. She was a young grandmother. But yes, during in here when he talks about the arrogance that a child feels like they are raising their parent, or they have, they are the person that's over their parents. Even my grandfather, he passed in 70 at 78, and he had Alzheimer's and dementia, but my mom still treated him like, but my mother's bossy anyway, but she still treated him like he was the dad.
Is that where you get that from?
I wish I could be as bossy as my mother without flinching. My mom is bossy without flinching. I'm always like, ooh, okay, let me dial that back a little bit. My mother, if she does some dialing back, it's in her prayers, but not in public. She may be like, Lord, forgive me, but blah, 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 blah. But she doesn't dial it back in public.
When he said, when his mother was like this, when he says, my mother knew, like with the capital KNEW, she was running the show, all shows. Yeah, she was like that. She walk into a place, like trying to.
And I'm like that too, but I'm not obvious.
Is that how you see it?
Yeah, it's not true.
Running things from the back seat, huh? I think that I'm a bit more, I'm probably more brash about things, but I do know my domain. I do know my domains. Like, there's certain things I don't like to step on people's feet, undercover showstopper.
I just like order. So that would be my area where you'll see me step up unapologetically. I love order, structure, I guess. I don't know what you want to call it, but I love putting things in place, and I don't have to minimize who you are or your efforts to do it. And so I just glide through and just put it in place without.
That's interesting. My mother was an Aries. Her birthday was last week, right? Your birthday is tomorrow. Yay. My mother's birthday was a week ago tomorrow.
Okay.
And my mother was that way too. My mother, we would go, and I don't know, I may have shared this with you guys. We would go out of town to people's houses, like, and my mother would just go in, and as she's talking, like, she may make a pot of coffee or whatever, but she gets up and she starts washing dishes. She'll open up cabinets, she'll shift stuff around, she finds space, and
it's almost like it calls you.
Yeah, all the while she's doing the work, and she's still having the conversation, so you don't even realize that she's not sitting with everybody else. And she might, all of a sudden take this trash out, do this, do that, and before you know it, it's like, all right, let's move into the next room.
Yes. I'm not asking it of you. I'm not saying you should be helping me. So it's like, I'm a Martha without saying, Lord, why don't you have Mary help me? Because that's not necessary. As long as you're good with me straightening things up and doing what needs to be done, I'm still here, but I can't sit still until it's orderly. And I don't mind ordering it. I do not mind doing that. Yeah,
that's good. It was when you said, because I've done that, but not to my mother's extent. I've gone to people's houses and started washing dishes or dusting or something like that. But yeah, my mother will open up your stuff and start, just what. She don't even say, oh, when's the last time you cleaned out the refrigerator? She don't say that. She ain't no judgment in it. She just pull that garbage can over here. And still talking. Just,
My girlfriends love when they move or relocate. They're like, can you come and help? Can you come? Can you come? Can you come? I don't have that narrative, but yeah, I come and it's just, yeah, I get it done. I just like, I love putting stuff in order.
Yeah, and I've done it with a couple of girlfriends. The one in particular, I went to, she was going through a major, actually both of them were, because I don't normally just invite myself over for that kind of stuff, but both of them were going through a major depression. And I knew that we needed to move energy, because if you can't unblock something on one level, it takes that transformation on another level,
yes,
to then move the energy in the room. And this one woman, I went into her place, and I took girlfriends with me. I took Crystal and Maria. We all went over to her house, and we rearranged her house. So the stuff that was in the living room, we put in the family room, and took the stuff out of the family room, brought it into the living room. We rolled up rugs. We just went in and just did it was just a deep shifting of stuff. And I don't know. I didn't go back to see later if it stayed that way or what, but I know that it was something that when we went in there, we just kind of sat and started thinking about what needs to shift. And that was what we did. We shifted. So yeah. Anyway, okay. So in here it says the last thing parents want to see is their children suffering on their behalf. So it is this thing of, even if it's not a verbal thing that people say, it is that I think everybody wants to have done a good job at parenting. And if there is something that they can do to alleviate the suffering of their children, even the most selfish or self-centered parent will still try to figure out, how can I help?
Yeah.
And so part of it is allowing, just part of it is just allowing. So sometimes, I know that people will feel like, oh, my mother is impossible. Oh, my mother is this. But we got to have the courage to have the conversation. Yeah, is part of that. So, because it says, so we continue suffering and blocking the flow of the life force energy that is available to us, and the generations to follow when we don't do the work. So we can unblock it simply by, and it's not so simple, but just by committing to having the conversation. And then he ends with this, it is important to preserve and respect the integrity of the parent-child relationship rather than diminish our parents' dignity. Yeah. Yes.
It's true. It's true when you know that, or believe that even an abusive parent is just doing the best they can. They're doing the best they can and keep it moving. I think we started yesterday when I was telling my son, even if you don't have a conversation with your father, you need to exonerate your experience in your heart so that you don't relive the negative experiences. We do owe it to ourselves to do that, so that we don't repeat those behaviors, because we become that which we judge. We look up and something in your life is not okay. You might want to just examine, who have I judged? Where have I condemned this in somebody else's life?
So as we as we move from that into this idea of, have you blamed, rejected, judged, or cut yourself off from your parent section? Now, I will say that, yeah, in that book that I just read, it was all about a severed relationship between parents and child. And how that particular relationship played out. That was the one that Ruth's daughter was the read the book, or was the voice artist behind that. And it was really good because it talked about the reason for the sever. And even though there was a part of this longing for the parents, it was so much pain that they couldn't see past the pain to get to the reconciliation. Yes. So he says in here, if we truly want to live a life, a fulfilled life, a life that is just like, deeply joyful and rich, and where we feel our own best, our own highest joy and all of that stuff, it's important that we reconcile these relationships.
I know, right?
Because there's always this something that, because we are, like it or not, for lack of a better reason or way of saying it, we are tethered energetically to our parents. And so even when we think that somehow we are, like blocking or not paying attention to them, we are not disconnected.
No, and energetically, we are attracting our mothers or our fathers because we're always in a space of desiring to reconcile, always energetically, especially in a romantic relationship. We're going to either be pulling in the father or the mother, whichever parent that you have, your soul says, hey, we need to grow up in this area. You're going to attract that energy to yourself in your partnerships or in your boss, or you'll have that employee or employer that will be one of those parents that you need to do your work with.
Ooh, isn't that scary? Oh my goodness.
So why not just go to the parent and get it over with? Giving all those other people your blessings.
Right. So he says here, we must repair our broken relationships with our parents. Beyond having given us life and being an inexorable part of who we are, our parents are the gateway to hidden strengths and creative forces, as well as the challenges that are also a part of our ancestral lineage. Taking time to walk in their shoes is huge. Yes, Winnie, it is, because sometimes if we could just see that they too have been through trauma and drama and all kinds of stuff, if we could just stand in their shoes and try to understand from that perspective what informs the decisions that they make when they're dealing with us. If we could,
I still get weepy. I still get weepy when I think about it. Yeah. When I finally decided to see my mother as a 15-year-old having a baby, I was 15. I was beating people up. I wasn't trying to have sex. That was not on my agenda at all. So I can't imagine, but it also helped me to also then say, hey, what was going on in her house?
Yes.
And it just made me dig a little deeper and a little deeper. So then I had to begin to see my grandparents in a way that I had not been able to see them before. And yeah, but it just began to just change a whole paradigm for me.
When I was younger, I will tell you, there's a man who used to stay a couple of doors down from us. And this man, probably, we used to laugh and joke about him because we used to say he must have had about 30 kids, right? And he would usually have children with like 3 or 4 children with one woman before he moved on to the next set of children. And so he had all these sets of children. Anyway, there was this guy who used to come in town to see his father. And this one particular guy, there were 2 brothers, and they would come to see their father. Anyway, this young man, he was one of those unsavory kind of, I don't want to call him a thug or a bad boy, but that's kind of like what he puts you in the mind of, just kind of that. And so he had focused his attention on me, this little girl, who he would, come down to the house and sneak and talk to me and try to get me in the woods. And it was this constant thing of just trying to, let me just feel it. Let me just feel it. Right. And there was this, like I knew that it was like, oh no, I shouldn't, this is not what I should do. But I can remember how the attention and the, because yeah, he was constantly trying to get at me, it was just that. And so there, so at the age of, that your mother was, or at that ripe age when people are, good morning, Sandra, when people are going through those kinds of, that animalistic attraction and that desire. I just found out that I called him my junior high school boyfriend, just died. And he was another one that would always trying to stick you. And it was, there's a lot of, as a girl, as a young girl, there is an awful lot of like processing that goes on in your head when you're trying to say no about that hard press of people just, let me just, I ain't gonna go in. I ain't gonna do this. I can just imagine that all of a sudden, this, what they are trying to make it seem like it's totally harmless, now all of a sudden is becoming a little Stephanie. And you're trying to, well, what did you do, kind of thing. And you like, it wasn't, it didn't actually
exactly,
it doesn't even take a second. It don't even take,
especially for too young, because they were both the same age. My dad is a little, maybe a few months older than my mom. So pre-ejaculation, whether they even had actual intercourse is probably questionable, because just the, her being probably having a cycle, him pre-ejaculating is, but it's just like that, just that simple.
Yeah. And when he says, I have a 15-year-old girl, and that raw talk is daily, because that is just that, and here it is that we're not understanding our own body, and our body is responding to whatever it is that their body is doing. And so you got this thing of, and so they just want to rub up against you. They just want to they just gotta like, can I see it? Can I, they got all of this game around it. And so there was, when I tell people that my first sexual encounter was with an older man, it was because yeah, y'all, yeah, and I don't care if y'all really judge me, because whatever the case may be, but I chose this man. And he was an older man. And even before he did that, he was like, let's go. He got me on the bus and took me down to the clinic. I was on birth control pills before we ever ventured into that part, right? I hear, oh my, really? Yes, it's really, really, really. It's, yeah, because that's how you got to be. I recognize too that not all girls are there, because not all girls
No.
are interested in that. It's not that pressure on everybody. Some people, it just seems like so remote, like, yeah, going by, right? It's not that. But for me, it was, I tell y'all, I was young, 14, 15, and they was like, let me just, I could taste it. I could just, let me just, and there's this, like, yeah, my first time is not going to be in the woods, my first time is not going to be on the side of the house or in some stairwell. I was just like, I had in my mind that it needed to be different from that. So yeah, when you talk about your mom at 15, I could see, I could see being just totally blindsided by,
Mm-hmm.
oh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had girls in my junior high school that, when they started showing that they took them out of school,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and wonder what that was like.
Yeah. I was in 67. So it was 66 and 67. There's a lot going on. Civil wars and army tanks and stuff in the Lee Harbor area. There was a lot of things going on around that time too. A lot of fear that was going on. And so, yeah, but I've once I put myself in her shoes, I began to see a lot of things different. And it also helped me to understand a lot of ways about myself. And that's why this book has been so impactful, because I was already doing the work, but it just um it just affirms the work that I do now. And the work that I've had to do for my own personal life. So when I say it's true, you got to do this, I am literally speaking with authority.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about this thing of, he says in here, he says, whether they're dead or alive,
Mm-hmm.
we're distant, whether we're distant from them or our relations are amicable, our parents and the traumas that they've experienced or inherited hold the key to our healing. Then he goes on to say, even if you have the sense that you would rather chew a handful of thumbtacks than to warm to your parents, this step cannot be bypassed, no matter how long it takes. He says it took him 36 weekly lunches with a Marine sergeant father before he finally told me that he never believed I loved him. Now, Mark could have went into this whole thing of trying to connect with his father, thinking this is all about me. Never once considering that his father had this fear that he wasn't good enough for his own son.
Mm-hmm.
That I never thought that you loved me
Mm-hmm.
is, I mean, and just that whole thing is just, to me, just heartbreaking.
Yeah. And it makes sense too, because from an attachment standpoint, so if and Mark had a fractured attachment with his mother, right? So therefore it was not safe for him to demonstrate like external emotions. It wasn't safe. And so to his father, he probably just was like cold and apathetic about things that his dad would do, or if his dad was very like, I think he had drinking and stuff. So when his father was explosive, Mark just learned to be detached. And it really didn't start with his dad, it started with his mom, the detachment from birth. And so it comes across like, no, I'm not running up to you, hey dad, glad you're home, because that has never been safe for him. And so that makes so much sense that his father would feel like, I'm standing on my head and you still, I just never thought that it mattered. And when he left, when they left each other, he probably is one of those sons, daughters do it too, but sons have a really propensity to leave and like check in once a month or 4 times a year and not call.
But and the other thing is that I don't know for sure, but it seems like all children have this angry stage that they may go through with their parents anyway. There's this, it seems like this space where they're naturally trying to disconnect, naturally trying to find who they are. So really there may be a space where they just can't stand you naturally. And so I don't know if it's like that ebb and flow of a relationship that seems to happen, but I know it seems to me that we all go through that at some point. That,
we either go through it or we deny it.
So yeah, I mean, and so, I watch other people as they go through that stage, and it's like, they'll come around. I remember, especially when I went off to college, I was like thinking to myself, like, my parents don't know nothing. Right? Because
I've never felt like that.
But I was getting all of this knowledge. And so I was thinking that I was, more intelligent and all of this stuff, until after, after a while, you thinking, shit, they didn't even know. You need to go to college to learn all of it. They know, I didn't get that until I became open to it. And the way that we define knowledge in this country nowadays is based on whether or not you paid for it.
The only value that we give it.
Yeah.
Like older people or senior citizens aren't given the homage and honor. We're not sitting at the nursing homes on the floor listening, trying to get some wisdom. We don't do that kind of stuff anymore. On the porch listening.
So he says, he says broken relationships often stem from painful events in the family history. Yeah, when he said book sense. Yeah, painful events in the family history, and can repeat for generations until we summon the courage to let go of our judgments and open our constricted hearts and regard our parents and other family members with a light of compassion or openness to understanding or getting this kind of information. And only by doing so can we resolve some of the angst and the pain and all of the stuff that is surrounding that. So if we're not in, I laugh at my uncles, right? Because they have that down home Southern kind of information or knowledge. I never forget when I was telling my uncle that I was like, yeah, I'm dating so and so, but we broke up a couple of times, but we always get back together. And he looks at me and he was like, if a dog circles back, you shoot it. And I'm looking at him like, what 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 does that mean? Like, what do I do with that, right? And so he was trying to tell me, if it's a dog's job to hunt and he's supposed to be on a scent and he circles back, he said that dog don't know what he's doing. He said you shoot that sucker on the spot. He said because it can't help you. And I'm like thinking, what kind of stuff is that to say? all he was saying was, is if it didn't work out the first time or the second time, it ain't gonna work out a third time. But for me, the way that he said it was so traumatic that I was just like, but this comes from, he was the son of, this is my dad's brother. So they were all sons of my grandfather. And my grandfather, you asked him, what's the dog's name? Dog. Well, what's that one's name? Dog. All of them's name is Dog? Yep, his name is Dog. I said, well, how do you know which one you calling? He said, they know. Come here, Dog. And one of them would get up and come. And I'm just sitting up there thinking, like, what the hell? How do you name all of them Dog? And he just looking at me like, what don't you understand?
Wow. Right.
Their name was Dog. And so when I talked about my grandfather was always around planting seeds, it was, there was function. People were their function. It wasn't that. Now, I'm not trying to make it seem like this is wise counsel, but for him, this was how he ordered his world. It was around functionality. So, I don't know, we just, but for them, there's a wisdom in that, right? Because they understand it. It wasn't for me to get caught up in my judgment. It's still not.
No.
Right? No. It's still not. It is. And the wonderful thing about it is that they had a wisdom that you can only witness. It's not even like I could figure out the nuance that the dogs understood. When he said, come here, dog. Because that nuance was, yeah, when he said they knew their assignments. She said, I need some popcorn for this one. But I think that I think that sometimes we get caught up in our emotionality, our emotions about stuff, without really understanding that that there are certain laws at work behind this stuff.
But when we're children, we don't know that. So the parents are our laws, they are our gods. And when they lack the inability to demonstrate that or to be their highest best selves, and then we run off and learn how to be our highest best selves, a lot of times what happens is that we put the parent aside and, or we judge them, or we feel like we can't relate to them. So then we stifle ourselves. We have selective conversations with them because you don't want the commentary, or you've already prejudged the commentary, or you think you'll be prejudged. You prejudge what you think your parents are going to judge. And that all of that stifles our living full out. Like being completely full in the relationship because we haven't figured out a way to get into the lean. I tell, parents all the time when they come with their kids that, when we're riding on a motorcycle, if I'm in the front, you in the back, whoever, when there's time for the lean, everybody's got to lean on the bike. But if one person sits straight up and the other person is leaning, you're going to crash. And that's what's happening when we don't learn to all lean into the curb, we crash. And then you just keep having these series of crashes and you get back up on the bike and then you still keep crashing and you keep crashing. And so I think that when it's time to exonerate the parent is when we start to say, okay, I'm going to get in the lean. I'm going to see this differently.
Yeah. And I don't know sometimes if it is, I think that there is an intuitiveness that is at play instead of standing in resistance. Right? When we stand in resistance, I think those are the times when you try not to lean. But there is an intuitiveness of it's kind of like being on the dance floor and people will tell you we both can't lead. One of us has to merge into the other. One of us has to be able to follow in order for this to work. And so sometimes it's not how difficult is it to just allow?
Very.
You say very difficult to allow.
If I have had a parent that I could not trust, a parent that's explosive, a parent that's unpredictable, no, I don't trust. I don't trust to get on here and that you're going to guide me and lead me. And I think that when people have challenges with surrendering, they probably should learn how to do a dance that requires cooperation, because you'll start to notice, I cannot let this person lead me because it's not been safe for the people who were supposed to lead. They didn't create a world that made it safe for me to
wow,
do
that's
that.
deep right there, right? Because I don't know that I've ever been in a situation where I believe that a person didn't have my best interest at heart. I mean, I have been, good morning, Desmond. I mean, I have been in situations where I've thought that, people outside that had something to gain from me, but not within my family have I thought that they didn't have my best interests at heart. I've always felt like I could go limp. I could just like, oh, they could take it. I have felt
that's
like
not
that.
everybody's narrative.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Because I just, that's deep.
It is.
Whew, that's deep right there. Oh, that breaks my heart. She just slapped me. I mean, not literally, but
I know.
I feel like that moment, like, damn, she just slapped me with that one. Cause that hurts to not I got that hurts to feel like you can't trust you, like not even your parents to operate on your best, on your behalf. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't even and you know, to whom this lesson falls, I think that much is required. This is like that the work to do, and that understanding. So yeah, just sit in that space, Sandra. Hey, Jean-Pierre, good morning. That's what he says, that's where so many of us from underserved communities came from.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, and on some level, I get that. I get that we've got a lot of trauma in our communities, right? I get that, the trauma of it. But still, it seems like wherever we have been, we have, we've kind of created a sense of community and had certain people around us that we did trust, and we hope that that would be at least our family members. But what I'm hearing is not always.
No, you have to heal the mother wound. It has to be healed.
And so what do we do in this situation?
Keep reading this book.
So first off, it's acknowledging that
it's not always clear. It's hidden in plain sight. So that's, because I do a lot of couples work, and when you finally get to the place where a person can touch or give themselves permission to see the reality of their growing up experience, then they have to sit in the hurt that they've been avoiding feeling, like because most of the time you stay up here so you don't have to come down here. And so as long as I can intellectualize everything and compartmentalize everything and get degrees and be successful and keep my family in order, in some kind of order, why I'm also abusing my children too, even though it doesn't look like abuse, but it looks like structure and order or whatever. Until I get down into my heart space and do that healing work and forgiveness work, it just keeps going on and on and on. It's such a crucial part of the healing journey. And when you said yesterday, I want to make sure that I have made sure that I've examined my relationship with my mom. I need to make sure. I think that we all need to do that. It's like a fine-tooth comb. By the time my brother came to visit me in 2007, I think it was, we were driving home from the airport in Chicago. And I don't know what I said about my mother, but he said, Steph, you make out like our mom was Joan Cleaver. And I said, no, I've just done my work and I'm a mother. She wasn't no Joan Cleaver, far from it. She was 15 when she had me. You can make up whatever story you want to make up for that. But there was work that I had to do so that I could be at peace, so I could do ministry, so that I could lay hands on people. I couldn't do any work because I had so many blockages with my parents. And we have to, and it's hard to trust. It's hard to believe people. It's a thing, and it just takes work. It really takes the work and the patience with yourself to know that, yep, that happened. They're not bad people. You don't have to throw them in the garbage. You don't have to,
Yeah, and so I get like, when I was talking about yesterday that I needed to, right, really look at my relationship with my mother. I recognize that there was a lot of connection that she did not give to me, right? But I did not feel, do I want to say, I didn't feel any level of betrayal. I just felt that, I'm a Pisces and my level of connectedness is probably way more deep than some people can go. So what I find is even in my relationships, people don't swim in the waters that I swim in. So, and I don't even have that expectation of other people anymore. Sometimes it's like, okay, we'll just stay in the shallow end. We can play down here. We can splash the water down here because that's where people are comfortable at. But for me, I needed somebody, I needed something from my mother that she didn't have for me.
Right. And that's when we begin this little tiny drip of self-betrayal. Because we don't have the language to ask for it. And our parents don't have the knowledge to know for it. And so then we just begin to say, or say, I don't need it. We just begin to have a language that says, I don't have to go that far. I don't have to require that. It's not really that important.
Right. I mean, so say for instance, like my mother, when I said that when I was a kid, we always had a house full because she was babysitting. So she didn't have a whole lot to give to anyone. She didn't have time to sit up and, kiss my boo-boo or, or anything else. I'm functional. Sandy, get up from there and go and do what I told you to do. Because, Sandy, go in there and put dinner on. Sandy, do such and such and such and such. And don't call me Sandy because I don't like that, right? But it was that I had a function in the house, just like, when people back in the day used to have big families, they had big families because they needed big workers. They needed you in the field. They needed you to be functional in order to make it work. And so this idea of, a family was that everybody was on a team and you had a function on the team. And that function wasn't in part this kind of, let me tend to your emotional stuff. Yes, it was, we got all hands on deck. You need to do what you've been taught to do.
Yeah.
So look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's yeah. And I mean, and can you imagine, like, okay, so Winnie's mother was a teacher. And so maybe she always had 35, 40 kids that she was, that she was mothering besides Winnie, Can you just imagine how many of us felt as if we were not getting, oh gosh, is that, that they cut the umbilical cord and we come out that thing and it's like, no more are we the center. No more are we just able to have that oneness with our parents. No more.
Or you stop breast nursing too soon. Yeah. It's that same. And I refuse to give you a pacifier.
Yeah. So there is a part of us that needs to just learn, even as our your children get older, how do we stay open and available for when they need to come and have this reconciliation conversation and understand like what they didn't get, because it's not a thing of because a lot of, I think he even says in here and quit sucking that thumb when he said you
Or if you have a thumb-thucking adult, have some grace. Because there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
As opposed to judging it, you got to know that nobody is just, because it's like, let's just do some work.
So there is a thing that people, where they just get into blaming the parents and never reconciling with parents. And so as parents, hopefully, if this ever is, when this is your narrative, to be open to the conversation and owning
over and over again. My mother's been very gracious with me. I mean, a few times she was like, well, ain't nobody went to no big fancy school. She'll say that, but it's been a long, long time. But she has been really gracious with me being able to express. I mean, she's got letters from me as a teenager. And then as an adult, and I go into this field of work and study, I was saved first, and I was trying to win her to Jesus and all of that. And so we had that journey of our lives where, I just need you to understand the gospel. And, we just always had this struggle where I was trying to pull her into my world, but my way, until I had to just say, okay, Ma, like, let's get 100. But it took a lot of work, and it takes work, and it takes determination. And today I can say, hey, you're stepping on my toes, and my children, I've given them permission to say that too, because I'm a product of my mother. Who? And I didn't have a girl, thank heavens. I had all sons, all kings. Hallelujah. But yeah, we do. We have to start to do the healing work. That's the most important.
Yeah. So thank you for this conversation today. This is good stuff. I don't even, sometimes we go so deep, it's like, oh, okay.
That's what you want.
Huh?
That's what you want.
Yeah, it is. But there's this like, oh man, it's over.
Oh, it's over. Yeah.
And Everett is not on here today to tell us that we went way over time.
We did today. Thank you for entertaining us.
But this was good conversation, good work. And I held up the book. It didn't start with you, in case you are interested in reading along and doing the work. And I'm gonna put a little, I don't even know where we are in this, but I'm gonna put a little hashtag on page 67 to say that we made it halfway through that.
Right by this first full paragraph on that page. Okay. If you have.
Okay. Well, we did get in that.
We did. Oh, that's right.
What chapter? Oh, you have it on Audible. Okay, so we are in
part 2. Is it?
Good, because the first time I went through the book,
chapter 5.
Yeah, we're in chapter 5, and the section we're in is number 2. Have you judged, blamed, rejected, or cut yourself off from your parents? So the Audible is going to go, of course, much faster than what we're going, but it's helpful to listen to it all the way through and then come back and do the work.
Yes, do the workbook stuff. And if you get the Audible, you can download the PDF too of the worksheets. You want to be so, you really want to dig in, get the worksheets. They're really good to work with.
Yeah. So Jean-Pierre, it was great to see you on here today. That's beautiful. Desmond, Winnie, Sandra, Erica's probably
Erica.
We know how
she's going to work.
Sweetie was, everybody. It's just
thank you all.
Amazing y'all here and taking this journey with us. It's an important journey. So
it is.
And sharing those memories about my first little,
grandfather.
yeah,
Oh, your
well,
first escapade.
yeah, I mean, yeah, my granddad, but so the guy who just died was like, I always considered him like my first boyfriend, but when I was texting with my elementary school friends, they was like the neighborhood boyfriend. Like we all probably dated him. And he threatened me like he was gonna find me and marry me. He used to always tell me that. It's like, oh my God. Okay, John Pierre says he frequents, but he just stays in the shadows. Who knew? Well, I'm so honored to, I'm so honored that you listen in. Actually, there's a lot of people that do that. So it's always funny to me when people come up to me and say something, like, listen. So thank
That's
you, thank you,
good.
thank
Thank
you.
you all. Thank
But it
you.
does, feeling the people here, it enriches the conversation. So, I love that people bring something vibrationally to the conversation
Yes, yes.
that sort of adds to it. So
Thank
tomorrow
you.
is your birthday.
Yes.
Yay.
Most
I'm so excited.
perfect day of the year. At 10:45 p.m.
Yeah. Okay. All
All right,
right.
you all
So
have an
I will
amazing
see you
Wednesday.
tomorrow, God
Yes,
willing, and the creek don't rise. Thank you.
yes.
All right. See ya. All right. You guys, well, whatever. I don't know. But this was good. This was good. Even yeah, this was good for me. Even thinking about how, how at that younger age where I was and the struggle that I was having with understanding the sexual attraction and that whole energy and how to maneuver in that. And there it's so funny because so many people that I know right now, because of this 23andMe and ancestry and stuff, people are finding fathers men who didn't even know that they had children out there, which is amazing to me. And so there is this, because sometimes it's just, planting seeds, you hit and miss and go or whatever. And so you don't even know sometimes. That's how, my neighbor was. He didn't even know that he had a daughter until all of a sudden she calls him up and says, hey, did you know and says her mother's name. And he's like, yeah, back in, like right after high school, I was, well, you're my dad. And he's like, say what? Say what? And what's so interesting about that is though there's so much that's so interesting about that. But if you can just imagine that now you got a grown woman showing up and she has children and she finds you, and then all of a sudden you realize that, damn, not only did I plant a seed, that it came up like this, right? And so sometimes I'm so grateful that people have that experience, that they make that connection. But it's also recognizing that they went through years of questioning too, just not. And it's different from how we've heard with Stephanie, or it's different from how a lot of these conversations go. It is like, wow, I had no clue. Even in the book that I just finished reading, that this person had no clue that the adoptive parents that she had weren't her parents. So it's amazing how this stuff unfolds. However, that it does, and that we have the opportunity to excavate this stuff is just awesome. So thank you so much for being here. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And yeah, life is good. Life is good. So I'm out of here, y'all. Blessings to you. Think about this. Think about what you're thinking about. All right. I'll see you tomorrow. Love you, adore you, and see ya.